today I'm going to take you on a fantasy ride. I'm going to talk about a little reality and then a fantasy hunting trip across the world. So the reality part, living here in southern Missouri, and the only hunting I've ever really done is whitetail deer, other than varmints and predators. And I don't know if things will ever work out where I can get to go do any kind of awesome hunting in other parts of the world. Maybe so. But let's take a little fantasy journey. Let's just say that, for somehow I had the means, had the money, had the time, had all the tags, and I was gonna be able to spend a year or two and just go wherever I wanted to go in the whole world and hunt whatever I wanted to hunt. If somehow in that whopper of a tale that actually happened, where would I go? What would I hunt? And what gun would I use? So I'll get to the gun here in a second, but let me tell you where I would go first. And let me just say this is medium to big game hunting. I might have a little first course at some prairie dog hunting that I've wanted to do, but it's gonna be about medium to big size game. So I don't need to take, it's not gonna be a varmint rifle, like a 22-250. It's gonna be a medium to big game cartridge. And the first place I would go out west. Maybe New Mexico, Wyoming, something like that, Colorado. And I'd like to hunt antelope. I'd like to do some antelope hunting. Then I definitely would go Then I definitely would go to the Rocky Mountains somewhere, and I would do some serious mule deer hunting. And then I definitely, somewhere out west, I have to kill an elk. I want to go elk hunting. Then I would go kind of the direction of Montana and get up into Alaska. And once in Alaska or Canada, that area somewhere, I definitely would want to hunt a moose, a caribou. I don't really care about hunting bear, but if all this is paid for, might as well go out for a brown bear as well. So while in Alaska, I'll hunt for a brown bear. Where am I gonna go then? Once I've conquered the North American species I wanna conquer, I would go to Europe and hunt red stag, fallow deer, sitka deer, things like that. And I think New Zealand kind of has those same species, but I'd like to go to New Zealand. That could be an awesome hunt. I will tell you, I don't really have a desire to hunt anywhere in Asia or the Middle East. Just not my thing. But I would definitely want to end the hunt in Africa. But I don't really care about dangerous game hunting. I just have no desire to kill a lion, to kill an elephant. However, I would like to kill a water buffalo, a Cape buffalo. I'd like to kill a Cape buffalo, which would be my dangerous game. But I would love to hunt plains game in Africa. There are so many cool species of antelope and deer that are in Africa. I think would be an absolute blast. So that would be my awesome trip I would take in this fantasy story. What gun would I take? Well, it obviously would be a bolt-action rifle, a hunting design, but let's just throw it all out. Let's say we're gonna make it custom. So we don't have to debate which gun to pick. We can make our gun exactly the way we want it to make. If we feel like it needs a certain length barrel or a certain twist rate, let's just do it. If we feel like a particular rifle or cartridge has a certain flaw that maybe a gunsmith could fix, we'll just have them fix it. So to rule out any variable on the rifle, let's just say it's a custom rifle that meets our needs perfectly. And then it comes down to what cartridge, which this is always the part I'm the most interested in. The trip would be awesome. It would be so much fun. I forgot to mention, I want to hunt rams and sheeps in the mountains too, in any one of those places that I mentioned. But the journey, the exploring, all that is cool. The hiking, I would absolutely love all that. But I get so excited knowing what kind of cartridge that I would use. Which, let me get off on a little tangent here. That is something that annoys me a lot, is when I watch hunting programs. I watch a ton of YouTube hunting videos. And the majority of the time, they never even tell you what cartridge that they're shooting. And a lot of the times don't even tell you what the gun is. And they really only do it when it's part of an advertisement or a sponsorship. But I just get so aggravated. I want to know what rifle you're using, what cartridge are you using? Especially so I can see how, and also what bullet. So I can see how, when you shoot that animal, how it reacts, how successful was it, what was your experience. When I don't know how to compare it because I don't know what cartridge you were using, that's aggravating. So what cartridge would it be? Well, if you've been watching my channel, that I think the most versatile cartridge of all is caliber of all is the 7mm. If you want something to do any kind of hunting with and easily shoot long range, I feel like the 7mm is the most versatile. So I call it the 280 Acme Improve the perfect, the 7mm Odd 8 the best all around. And I even said in the video, I think the 7 mag is probably just the best hunting cartridge around. And I stand by all that. But if we're totally not concerned with long range target shooting, and if we're totally not concerned with small game hunting or varmints, and we're just going to be going around the world for medium or big game hunting, I think I would step up to a 30 caliber. I think that's the way to go. Now, my favorite 30 caliber of all time is obviously the 30-06. And what I mentioned, where I would go and what I would hunt, the 30-06 could definitely do it. And if that was what I went with, I think I could do it easily. The only exceptions would be the water buffalo and the brown bear. Probably need something bigger. So I could skip those animals, or I could bring a second rifle. But for the fun of this video, let's just say we have to pick one. Now, personally, I wouldn't want something like a 338 Win Mag or a 340 Weatherby to do this hunt with, although it would be much better suited for the dangerous game. It'd be way too much, in my opinion, for an antelope or a mule deer or something like that. So having thought it through, I guess I'm gonna have to change a little bit what I said. I wouldn't use this particular caliber for Cape buffalo. I would have to bring another Cape buffalo gun if I chose to hunt that animal. So exclude the Cape buffalo. And let's just go ahead and exclude the brown bear, because I don't want to recommend something and someone think I'm serious. But whatever caliber I pick in a self-defense situation would still be good enough, I think, to kill a brown bear if it charged you, or to kill a water buffalo if it charged you, but not something I would pick to go specifically hunting for. So exclude the brown bear, exclude the buffalo. What would be my cartridge of choice in the 30 caliber set? So I know there's a ton of them. There is a ton of them. It's not gonna be a 308. I'll just tell you that. As much as I love a 308 for a white-tailed deer, it's not gonna be a 308. I love how powerful a lot of the 30 caliber magnums are, whether you're talking about the old 30 H&H or some of the newer ones like the 30 Nosler, the 30 Remington Ultra Mag. I think they're pretty cool. I personally feel like the Ultra Mag and the Nosler are a little bit too much for the majority of the hunting I would be doing, and so I'm going to exclude them. I mean, we all love more power, more powder, more recoil, but is that what I would go with? No. If you've watched my channel, you know I love efficiency. I love getting the most out of something. To just make the case bigger, 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 and to add more powder, to me, is not so interesting. For hunting, it can be the right move, but it's not so interesting. So I always, lean towards efficiency. So I think of 3 cartridges. I'm not gonna talk about the 30-06, though that would be a great option and one of my personal favorites. I'm gonna narrow it down to these 3 cartridges: the 300 Winchester Magnum, the 300 Winchester Short Magnum, and the 300 Weatherby. First of all, for the animals I mentioned, excluding the buffalo and the bear, any one of those 3 would be perfect. I don't think you're gonna go wrong with any option. So getting back to what I mentioned earlier, when I watch YouTube videos or any kind of hunting program and they never talk about the rifle they're using, it drives me crazy. For instance, pretty cool YouTube channel, Limitless Outdoors. They do all kinds of mountain hunting and kill lots of elk and mule deer and stuff. It's a really cool channel. Saw him kill a bear, and he never, ever talks about the gun or the cartridge, at least in any of the videos I've watched. So I actually reached out to them, just a comment or an email or something. And I don't think it was the main guy, but someone from that channel responded and said they kind of understood how I feel, and that occasionally they'll use a different cartridge, but pretty much the go-tos are the 300 Weatherby and the 257 Weatherby, and they're usually Mark V's. And then almost always that's going to be the default rifles that they pick. Pretty much if it's a mule deer or something like that, it's usually going to be a 257 Weatherby. And if it's an elk or something bigger, a moose, it's usually going to be the 300 Weatherby Magnum. And I, just from watching so many videos, I continually hear the 300 mag and the 300 Weatherby brought up. I've watched a lot of African plains game hunting where they'll interview the professional hunter and they'll ask him, hey, what calibers do you think are good for Africa and African plains game? And usually they'll say, whatever you have at home, whatever you hunt deer with, just bring that, it'll be fine. Because they prefer a cartridge and a gun that you're familiar with and you've practiced with and that you can shoot it well. That's really what they care about. They don't want you to go buy a brand new 300 Ultra Mag, have never shot it until you step foot on the continent. That's not what they want. They'd much rather you have a 270 that you know how to shoot. But usually if you press them, they'll always say, a 30-06 does the job. And then usually if you press them even more, they'll say, if I had to pick one, bring the 300 Win Mag. 300 Winchester Magnum is pretty much probably the ideal plains game cartridge. You don't need it. You could use much smaller. You could use a 7mm Odd 8. You could use 280. You could use a 270, 30-06. Except for the big elands and that. Most of those antelope species are not super tough. And you get into zebra, antelope, wildebeest. Yeah, there are some pretty tough plains game. But any of those calibers are going to work. But generally they'll say, you know what? If I had to pick one, 300 Winchester Magnum is the best. Anytime you talk to somebody from Alaska and you say, if you could only have one gun to hunt Alaskan game, what would it be? You get a lot of different options. Some people will say this or that, but generally the 300 Winchester Magnum, it always comes up. And the 7 mag comes up too a lot. But once again, if I'm just hunting a big game or medium to big game, I think the 30 caliber is just a little bit better for that specific application. So the 300 Winchester Magnum is just dynamite. What about the 300 Winchester Short Magnum? What if you compare them? So it really comes down to this, efficiency. If you don't care about efficiency, and I know a lot of you guys don't, then just go with the 300 Win Mag or the Weatherby. If you do care about efficiency, then go with the Winchester Short Magnum. Now you might say, well, why does efficiency matter? Well, here's how it matters. So the 300 Win Mag can hold about 10% more powder, but it doesn't have 10% more velocity. Probably, less than 5% more velocity. If you're shooting like a 165 grain bullet, you're probably not gonna have any difference in velocity, even though one has more powder. However, if you do get up there around 220 grains, I would say the standard Win Mag is better for that. But you're gonna have that, to make use of that little bit more powder, you're probably gonna need a 26-inch barrel. You don't have to, by any means, you can go with a 24. But if you really think, man, I need to shoot the heaviest bullets, and I just want that little bit of an edge that the Win Mag can give me over the short mag, I probably need to get a 26-inch barrel. And there's nothing wrong with that, and it's cool. And of course, the Win Mag is a long or standard action versus the short mag, which is a short action. You're talking about a 1/2 inch difference there. So maybe 2.5 inches of difference total. Is it a 1/2 inch or a 1/4 inch on the different lengths? I think it's a 1/2 inch. Now you say 2.5 inches, does that really matter? No, not really. But if you're traveling all over the world and you're climbing mountains on different continents, that little bit of extra weight and that little bit of extra length is gonna come into play, okay? Now, which one's gonna shoot better? Look, I can tell you all day how, on paper, how awesome I think that the short mag is. But look at real world experience. They're both good. Look at how many people love the 300 Win Mag. I would personally say it's not the greatest design on the cartridge, and the 300 short mag is a more modern, efficient, better design. Having said that, how many people have been snipers that used a 300 Win Mag? So sometimes you just have to say, forget about what the papers say. Look at what the real world says. And the real world says the 300 Win Mag is awesome. Okay, so as far as performance, I would say equal. Efficiency, weight of the gun, length of the gun, slight edge to the Winchester short mag. Ammo availability, gonna lean toward the Win Mag. It's gonna be a little more popular, a little bit more common. And I've never personally hand loaded for either. But I will say, from what I've read, most people say it's easier to hand load for the Win Mag. It's not as finicky. But remember, we got custom guns here. We've had plenty of time to come up with a custom hand load. So we've already got the perfect load, no matter what caliber or cartridge we choose. And you don't have to worry about getting an old short mag that didn't chamber right. We have already figured all that out. So no issues with the gun, no issues with the cartridge or the hand load. What about the 300 Weatherby? So obviously the 300 Weatherby is very similar to the 300 Win Mag, because they both come from the 300 H&H, which of course comes from the 375 H&H. Both belted magnums, both extremely popular. I mentioned how I'm always hearing how the 300 Win Mag is the preferred caliber of choice. I can't tell you how many times that I've watched a hunting video, and on those occasions where somebody finally does tell you what they're using, it's the 300 Weatherby. I mean, unbelievably popular hunting cartridge across the world, and has been since the 50s. You know, and if you're thinking you're gonna have just a little bit longer shot than what you want, and you want to have just a little bit of an edge on velocity and energy, the 300 Weatherby is going to have the best performance of the three. And if, you know, the difference in recoil is significant, but it's probably, I mean, they're all three going to have some recoil, so it probably doesn't matter. You know, you're not going to care if you see the moose of your dreams or the doll sheep of your dreams, or a cool African eland or some kind of antelope of your dreams. The little difference in recoil of the Weatherby versus the short mag or the Win Mag is not going to matter. They're all going to have some kick to them. So you can't go wrong. Any one of those calibers is going to work great. I'd like to know what you think. If you could hunt the world, have all the tags, all the time, all the money you needed, where would you go? What would you hunt? And then if you could have the perfect rifle, what would you do to customize it? So I'll tell you, I would go with a 300 short mag. I just think for carrying it across the world, it would be the most convenient. It'd be 24-inch barrel. Obviously, it's a short action. It would either be a stainless steel barrel and action. The whole thing would be, any metal would be stainless or some kind of Duracoat or something so that it couldn't rust. And I would do all the little things like free flow to the barrel and bed it and all that. It would be just perfectly. And I would say I would end up with some kind of bullet, probably in the 165 to 180 grain class, that was a solid copper bullet of some kind. Something like a TTSX, a GMX, something like that's probably what I would go with. I would get something on the light side, because I'm going to be carrying a lot, but I don't have to get something on the ultralight side. I don't need a 5-pound rifle. The main reason why I wouldn't want the ultralight is because I just don't think you're going to be able to shoot them as accurate at a 300 or 400 yard shot. I just feel like it's, especially if you don't have a great rest, which I know you shouldn't shoot at all if you don't have a great rest, but I would definitely want a light rifle, not so much an ultralight rifle. The scope I put on it, I would look for something that was very rugged, very durable, but it was also on the light side. But I would pick the 300 Winchester Short Magnum. I think you're going to get the most bang out of your buck. I think you would fall in love with the cartridge over time. And I'm sure most people, that'll be probably the least favorite of the three I mentioned. I think most people will go with the other two. And I wouldn't fault you for it because they're awesome. So what do you think? What of those three would be your pick on the cartridge, or would it be something else? And what kind of rifle scope would you get, and where would you go in the world to hunt? I've enjoyed talking to you today. Drink some coffee, and until next time, take care.